Dear students of Honors Part 4, you are welcome to the class. Hopefully, you are keeping well. We are discussing on uh, the modern novel Sons and Lovers by the English novelist D.H. Lawrence. Dear students, I am Siddhartha Shankar, an assistant professor in English in Government Haroganga College, Munshiganj. In my previous class, I have discussed on the characters of this novel, the major characters, and today I am going to discuss on the story outline of this novel. So, dear students, it would be beneficial for us if we know the story and we will be able to understand the further themes of this novel. As you know that the major character of this novel, Morel, that Mr. Morel, Mrs. Morel, and their issues and their four issues, and some other characters are there who are related with this Morel's family. So at the very beginning, you know that Gertrude Morel was attracted by the physical that stoutness of Paul Morel, and they they married themselves. But that marriage was not a successful one because Gertrude Morel was disillusioned immediate after their marriage, because you know Paul Morel was a minor, and he used to drink heavily, and he used to behave rough with the family members, and therefore with the passage of time her love for her husband, that means Gertrude Morel's love for Paul Morel, was diminishing. Gradually, that when Gertrude Morel had issues, her love transformed from her husband to uh, her issues. That means he, she used to find some sort of satisfaction and some sort of love, affection in their children. Their elder child was William Morel. William Morel, in this novel, William Morel, at the very beginning, Gertrude Morel was very much dependent on him, because her husband was very much careless to their family affair, and sometimes he was brutal. That means uh, she actually had a dependence. She grew a dependence on her first son, William. At one point, William moved to London in search of livelihood. There he engaged in job. He fell in love with a shallow type of girl, and that love was not a successful one. Uh, and William died out of pneumonia, and that was a sorrowful death. So after this death, uh, Paul Morels and William and Paul Morel, the third issue of Gertrude Morel, uh, and that is Paul Morel was the third issue of Gertrude Morel. So after the death of William, she became totally dependent on Paul. Paul was a very promising type of boy. He was very good. He was a very good painter, and he also got some prizes in art and in painting, and therefore he was very promising, and this mother and son build up a very good relationship. And this mother son relationship actually uh, continues a leading theme in this novel. Later Paul also got a job in a surgical appliances manufacturing factory, and he also continued his hobby, that is painting. And Gertrude Morrell's another issue, daughter, another one daughter was there, that is Annie, and Arthur was there, and Annie got married, and Arthur Morrell he joined in army, and we know little about them in this novel. Rather, the relationship between the mother Gertrude Morrell and Paul actually makes the basic theme in this novel. Uh, Here we find that Paul fell in love with a teenage girl named Miriam, but here we find that Miriam is a spiritual type of girl in her attitude to love. That means she hold uh, platonic love, and to Paul she was very much cold, and she didn't uh, she didn't want to submit her physically, and therefore this love affair was not a successful one. And here we also know that uh, behind the unsuccessfulness of this affair there was a great contribution of Gertrude Morrell, because Gertrude Morrell thought that Paul will be detached from her if he fall in love with a girl like Miriam, and she disapproved this love affair, the love affair between Paul and Miriam. Uh, Actually, in our traditional life, we also see that mothers, uh, actually mothers, sometimes disapprove their son-in-law, because they think that the love of her son is going to be divided. So here in this novel, in this modern novel, we also find this same thing, but here uh, Gertrude Morrell was extremely positive, and eh, she had a lot of influence of Paul about every matter. When this love affair was unsuccessful, Paul fell in love with a married woman, and that time that woman was separated from her husband, and her name was Clara Doyce. Clara Doyce was physically attractive, and they had a physical relationship, but this affair was also unsuccessful, because there was no future in this relation, because uh, that Clara Doyce was a experienced type of lady, and Paul was basically mm, Paul was not uh, too much he couldn't have too much influence on Clara. Again, that lady was married, so there was no there was no prospect in this love affair. But somehow Gertrude Morrell was somehow approved. She approved this affair. We know that there was mm, a severe confusion between the husband that of Clara Doyce, named Boxster Doyce, and Paul, and in that confusion, in that battle, both were seriously, especially Paul was seriously injured, and after some days or some years, uh, that their affair, that their marriage between Paul and uh, Clara Doyce and Boxster Doyce was reunited again, and Paul was left alone. And that Gertrude Morrell suffered from severe illness, and at one point Paul gave her overdose of medicine, morphine, and she died. And after her death, Paul became too much helpless, and she became alone and lonely, and she was in search of uh, the meaning of his life. And here the novel ends, and here you see that Gertrude Morel, actually, in his life he had three women. The first one is his mother, Miriam. The second one, her a teenage beloved, and Box and Clara Doyes, the married woman with whom he developed basically a illicit love. So therefore, uh, basically Paul was a different type of girl. The two girls with whom he fell in love was also different. The two girls was also different type of genre. And you know that Gertrude Morel also, as she had a very unsatisfied family life. She basically sought pleasure in his son named Paul. Therefore, here we find all the characters are complicated, and the main major characters, and they actually didn't find happiness, or they couldn't have the satisfaction in their lives. So in this modern novel, we basically find the confusion and conflict of modern people. Dear students, today we have discussed the story outline of this great novel, Sons and Lovers. In my later classes, we will discuss on some other thing about this novel. So thank you for watching.